And a very good morning, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Pattison Ave Sports Show. I am your host, James Scorza, with you, and with me, as always, is a group of companions on this very important Saturday. Joey Marks joining me once again. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning, Philadelphia. Happy Saturday morning on a chilly 18-degree kind of weather. Hope everybody is
18
warm.
degrees. You should.
Yeah.
Is it really that cold?
Yes.
Oh my God.
It is. Believe me, my wife and my daughter have to go out to dance class. I
Oh yeah,
heard
you're right.
that.
It's going to be 26 today. Damn, I didn't even know it was that
Yeah.
cold. Oh my God.
Yeah. It's winter. If anybody hadn't known, it's winter. Winter's
Yeah,
not coming. Winter is here.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. And before we go any further, we'll have on a good friend of ours from the Philly Fire joining us, Johnny. I can't say his last name right.
Maguise,
Maguise,
Johnny
Johnny
Ma.
Maguise. Johnny Ma will be joining us in just a little bit, but we got a lot to get to. Eagles Steelers preview coming up on tomorrow on Sunday. Like I said, Johnny Maguise will be joining us very shortly, and a lot of the Philly sports scene as well. But Joe, there's a lot to get to on this Saturday, chilly Saturday, like you mentioned. So simply put, where do we begin?
Well, it's a chilly Saturday, so let's warm up by the hot stove. Let's go over to MLB, and there were a lot of moves, a lot of big moves made in this past week,
Mm-hmm.
and none of them included your Philadelphia Phillies.
Nope.
Uh, and I will say this, uh, I can't say that I'm all that surprised. And I know that some people might say, well, is this a good thing or a bad thing? And most
Mm-hmm.
people would say it's a bad thing. Losing out on Juan Soto for the Mets at going at 665, I'm sorry, $765 million
Ooh. Ooh.
for 15 years. And it could potentially get to $805 million when it's all said and done. This is a guy that came to the press conference and apparently decided that he was a little bloated, and that money kind of went to his stomach instead of to his head.
Yeah.
Um,
Before we go any further, Joe, our good friend Johnny McGuice joins us on the show. Johnny, how you doing, buddy?
Oh, good. How you guys doing?
Good, man. Thanks for coming on with us today. Welcome to the podcast, man.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Good morning. So John, we were just talking a little bit about the Phillies hot stove, and once we get through a little bit of that, we'll get into what more about the Philly Fire and about your team and the National Beatball Association. Um, Juan Soto going to the Mets. A lot of people saw this coming because of Steve Cohen and all of that. James, I'll start with you. Is this all that surprising to you? And are you that disappointed that Juan Soto will be a New York Met?
You know, it's funny, Joe. I got to be honest. I mean, when I heard Juan Soto go into the Mets, I was thinking, okay, we had to deal with him all these years with the Nationals. We had to deal with him all these years with with 1 year with the Yankees, obviously, and not able to go and fetch that player that we wanted to go and see. This is a little bit concerning for me for the Phillies going to Met, Joe, because I think the one thing that I took out of this whole complexion of what Dabrowski is trying to do is that obviously he's trying to keep the players that we had last year. Obviously, I mean, he's trying to keep the players around. Obviously, you don't want to like trade like a Harper or trade Trey Turner and try to do whatever you can. But the problem is I have with this team is that now you got to deal with this guy for 15 years, and it's like you thought he would be going away out of the division, and now he's back into the division. So
There was
it was not a good week for the Phillies.
Yeah, there was talk of him going to Boston or staying with the Yankees and maybe the Dodgers. The Dodgers kind of flamed out of it early. Not too surprising because they're more focused on some of their Japanese prospects than much of anything else. Boston actually did land
Garrett Crochet.
yeah, and which I guess is the second door number 2 to Juan Soto. So I guess that makes sense. So Johnny, what's your take on the Juan Soto deal? Is this something you're too surprised of that he went to the Mets, and does it concern you?
Yeah, I kind of thought with the money he was going to command, he was going to end up probably with the Mets, the Yankees, or maybe the Dodgers. It didn't seem like we were going to pay that much money for him. It's a little concerning that we got to face him for the next 15 years. I'm not going to lie, but at the same time, I think that contract is so large that it could actually potentially hurt the Mets. It's maybe not right away, but especially down the road. Just having that much money in one player may kind of hurt their ability to sign some other guys and bring some other guys in. So, yeah, I wish he wouldn't have went to the Mets. But again, it may in the long run be a blessing in disguise.
I've always kind of said that there are certain teams in certain leagues where no matter how talented the player, it's that team is like a black hole. And for the longest time, the Mets have kind of been that. Not Tatis. Why am I blanking on his name?
Lindor, you mean?
Lindor.
Yeah.
He had a MVP caliber type season. However, he still didn't do enough in my mind to garner the fact that he's up there in the same echelon as Ohtani or Judge. He doesn't give me that fear that he's going to do it again. Now, look, Soto could be different, but the same perspective could be true. He could go there, and Lindor was an all-star coming into the Mets organization. So is Cespedes, and that their careers, at least Cespedes and some other players, their careers went to die in New York.
Good
So
point.
I'm not saying Juan Soto's has that ability, but showing up to the press conference, it clearly overweight. Me and the idea that after losing the World Series, you're already talking about the highest bidder. You're not a guy that's focused on what team you're part of. You're focused on what's best for your bottom dollar.
Right.
So, you know, I hope, as our friend Frank Finnegan would say, I'm just hoping the New York Mets met Juan Soto. But
Yeah.
let's switch gears for a little bit. Let's talk about another version of baseball. Let's talk about beat ball. Uh, John, I connected with you and other teammates of yours in the last couple weeks, and I'm glad to have you on. There's a lot of things to celebrate. Number one, this is the first time on our show that we've ever had a World Series champion. And number two, this is the first time I think we've ever even talked to or gotten close to an MVP of any caliber. So, first off, congratulations, the Philadelphia Fire 2024 World Series champions. So that first off,
Thank you very
um,
much. Appreciate it.
no
Yeah.
problem.
Congratulations, buddy.
Thank you.
Second, can you tell our viewers a little bit about beat ball and a little bit about how the game is played and about your role with the Philadelphia Fire?
Sure. So beat ball, or beat baseball is baseball, an adaptive sport or adaptive version of baseball for the blind and visually impaired. It is like baseball in many ways, and it's not in others. So, the ball beeps and the bases buzz. Those are obviously two different things. As far as hitting goes, you have a sighted volunteer pitching to you and a sighted catcher. Volunteers are very, very big in our sport. We really appreciate our volunteers. We actually couldn't play the sport without sighted volunteers being involved. But when it comes to offense and hitting, the pitcher is actually on your team, so that's a little different from normal baseball. Now, if and everybody's blindfolded at all times to keep it on an even playing field. Now, if we were blindfolded trying to hit off a blindfolded pitcher, I don't think there would be a lot of hits. So that's the reason for that adaptation. We get in the cage starting in January to work on hitting. So it's all timing. The pitcher will say a cadence like set, ready, pitch. And while you're hitting, you're actually not even listening to the beeping ball. You're just listening to the pitcher's voice. If you're trying to listen to the beep, it'll be by you by the time you're going to hit it. So once you do connect with the ball, one of either first or third base will go off. There's no second base. There's another volunteer behind home plate working a switch for each base, and they randomly pick one. So not only do you have to run 100 feet, that's how far the bases are, to the base after you hit it, you have to listen and figure out which one's going off. If you reach the base before the fielder picks up the ball, it's a run. If the fielder picks up the ball before you reach the base, it's an out. There's no doubles, singles, or triples in beat baseball. There is a home run. There's a home run line that's drawn at 170 feet, which doesn't sound that far, but you have to remember this ball is a bit heavier than a regular baseball. It weighs just over a pound. It's about the size of a softball, maybe slightly larger. So it's pretty hard to hit the ball in the air that far. I mean, your average good beat baseball hit is probably somewhere between 100 to 150 feet. We did have a few home runs at the World Series this year, but you have to be in pretty good shape and really kind of connect the right way to put it that far, that long in the air. So on defense, you have 6 fielders out there, and then you have two volunteer spotters as well on defense. And basically what we do for defense is the field will be broken into zones. So first base to center field will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, with center field being 6. And then same thing going to first base, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So let's say you're right in the middle of that zone and you're set up in a 3. A spotter will tell you you're in a 3. You're in a 3. That's where you are. Somebody else behind you might be in a different spot. If the ball's hit to, a 4, the spotter can only say one number. They can't say anything else. They can't say go to your right, go to your left. They'll just call a 4 or a 5. And from those calls, you'll know kind of where where the ball's coming. And then at that point, it's up to you. And some people wear gloves, but most defenders don't. The idea is basically to dive in front of the ball, get in front of it, stop it, and then find the ball and pick it up. So you just have to pick up the ball 6 inches off the ground, and that records an out. And again, if a player hits the base, which the bases are about 5 foot or so pylons, a lot of people dive through the base, tackle the base, do whatever you have to do to score. So that's generally how the adaptive version of beat baseball works.
So I have a couple of questions. So number one, in regards to the ball, and I would then have to ask, because I know with softball, they use aluminum bats. So my question is, what type of bats do you guys ordinarily use? Aluminum or wood?
We use both. I would say the vast majority use aluminum though, but some people do use wooden bats. It's allowed, but probably the vast majority use aluminum bats. I have a wooden one and I have aluminum, and the wooden one is cool, but I haven't used it much.
I would assume that. Yeah, I would assume because the ball is a little heavier, the aluminum bat would probably have a little bit more, impact on the ball versus the wooden one that could, depending on the type of wood, it could snap. I mean, conceivably, it would probably break a lot. I mean, we see all the time in regular MLB baseball with that size baseball. Now, granted, pitchers in beat baseball aren't throwing 100 miles an hour, or at least I hope not. But the idea that, baseball wooden bats snap pretty easily.
Yeah, we've had wooden bat snap. We've actually had a metal bat break. And I mean, the pitchers in beat baseball are some of the toughest guys out there because they stand about 21 feet away from us. So they are not very far. And the majority of the pitchers in the sport wear some sort of mask. 2 or 3 years ago, a pitcher from the Indianapolis team actually got hit in the face and got his jaw broken. Another pitcher, a bat did snap years and years ago before I played, and actually half of it stuck into his thigh. So these guys are very, very tough guys. And again, we give the Volunteers tons of credit for allowing us to play this game, but they're competitive too. Don't get me wrong. The sighted pitchers compete with each other. They want to be the best. They want to have the highest contact rate in the league, and they want to win just as bad as we do.
So my next question is, when you refer to if a person were to get a hit, they would the volunteer behind the plate would randomly select whether to set off the first base or the third base. So say a person were to reach first or third, whichever base was set off, how would then would they be like standing on that? If they were to be safe, would they be standing on that plate and then waiting for the next hitter? And then if the next hitter,
no, just think of it like first base. So you're just running through it. You know what I mean?
Okay.
In regular baseball, you're just like how you just run up the line pretty much on a single.
right?
You're just running through the base as hard as you can, and then the umpire is going to say, safe or out. And there is a ton of bang plays in beat baseball. I mean, it's crazy how it works out to basically as the fielder's grabbing the ball, the guy's hitting the base. Probably 50% of the time, I'd say 50% of the time are bang plays. I mean, there's some no doubters. Don't get me wrong. There's some plays where they gather the ball pretty quickly as well if it's hit right at somebody, but. There's a lot of bang plays in beat baseball.
But I mean, like once that person is safe, like do they stand there?
No.
Okay.
You just head back to the bench and it's a run.
Oh, okay. It's a run.
Gotcha.
Okay. Yeah. So the other question I have is you brought up about like as a fielder, 6 inches from the ground would, qualify as an out, and sliding and getting to it. But you also mentioned about how if a person that's fielding the ball, if the ball drops and a person gets to it quickly enough, and if they get to it quicker than the runner gets to the first or third, then that runner's out. Is that correct? Do I have that right?
Yeah, that is correct. Basically, you just have to stop the ball and pick it up. There is actually we just voted on this about 2 years ago and added it in. There's a double play in beat baseball. The double play is you actually have to catch the ball cleanly off of one hop. So let's say you're standing out there, it takes a big one hop and hits you in the chest, and you happen to catch it. That's a double play, it's difficult. It's happened a few times, and then you can actually get an automatic 3 outs if you catch the ball clean in the air, which I think has only happened maybe 3 to 4 times in the history of the league, something like that.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
well, that the league's been around for I think you told me before for 48 years. They're going to be
1976 was the first year of the National Beat Baseball Association. The World Series has been going on. They've actually played World Series games, I believe, in the Astrodome at some point.
wow.
I only got involved in beat baseball around 2014, so I don't know all the stats. I mean, I wasn't even alive when it started, but this was the 48th year, and we're actually the first team ever in the 48-year history from the East Coast to win the World Series. So it's been a lot of Midwest, Texas teams, West Coast, and kind of Southwest teams, and there's been a couple dynasties that have taken a lot of titles. There was a team, I think the Austin Blackhawks, I want to say won around 7 in a row at some point. So
they're the Yankees of the National Beatball Association.
Yeah, I think they have the most titles with around 9. And again, don't quote me on these numbers, but I just from listening to other stuff, I think they have the most titles.
So let's focus on the title that you guys brought home from the most recent World Series. So I got to ask. I did a little bit of research prior to today. So I heard or read that you guys had two Olympians throw out the ceremonial first pitch for the World Series. Jackie
Yeah,
Joyner Kersey, and I forget who the second one was.
yeah, I think she was the only Olympian. Jackie Joyner Kersey threw out the first pitch. The guy who sang the opening ceremony, his name is escaping me right now, but he
Yeah.
sings the national anthem at the Chiefs games, and he's a really good singer. And then actually for the World Series championship game that we were in, obviously, Benji Molina threw out the first pitch, which was pretty cool. So
Wow.
yeah, got some big names. Now he's the broadcaster for the Latino broadcaster for the Cardinals. So that's how they kind of pulled him in, because it was in St. Louis. That's where the event was.
Okay. Well, Benji is he's a Hall of Famer. Like that's a guy that's a staple in St. Louis. Um, so I got to ask, like from your perspective, winning the World Series, the idea of first playing in the World Series and then winning it, like what was that experience like for you?
It was awesome. I've been playing, like I said, since 2014. I traveled to my first World Series. Now, when I say World Series, World Series is basically the week-long tournament that takes place in a different city. Most years, this year, it's actually in St. Louis again. It's the first time I can recall it's in the same city back to back. But they presented such a good presentation and accommodations that we decided the league decided to book it there twice. But I've been playing for a while. It's the first time since I've been traveling to the World Series since 2016 that I played on Saturday. So it starts on Sunday. Teams all get there on Sunday and practice Monday, and the games start Tuesday to go Tuesday through Saturday. Generally, you'll play like anywhere from 7 to 10 games, depending on how you do. So it's a grueling week for sure. There's a lot of diving involved. Like I said, running through bases, diving at balls. By the end of the week, it's tough. But it was the first time I ever played on a Saturday. We got fourth place the previous 2 years. We were eliminated on Friday, both of the previous 2 years. So it was really cool just to, we all got announced to come up and be in the championship game and center of attention. The whole league comes out Saturday and watches. It was just a really awesome week. We went 8-0, didn't lose a game. We were the number 4 seed going in. They determine the seeding kind of like NCAA basketball does. They'll take results from all the regular season, and then actually all the teams submit a ballot or an order, if you will, and they just take the average of what all the teams submit and then make the ranking. So there was 20 teams this year, and we went 8-0 and finished 1. So it's pretty cool.
There's like a selection Sunday kind of thing for the tournament.
A selection Sunday, yeah, just to seed the teams. I mean, any team that pays the registration and wants to go can go as long as there's enough. Like there might be a limitation on, hey, we can only accommodate 24 teams because of fields. So at that point, if there was a 25th or 26th team trying to register late, they maybe couldn't get in. But we haven't run into that issue in a while. So yeah, but for seeding purposes, that's how that happens.
Do you know how many teams are in the association?
There's roughly like 30 teams registered for the National Beat Baseball Association, but this sport is very expensive, very costly. You have to think about flying everybody, staying in a hotel for a week, volunteers and renting cars and stuff. Like on average, I would say, and we do a lot of other tournaments, but just the World Series week can cost on the low end probably 10 grand, on the high end up to 15, possibly even 20 grand for the whole week. So
Wow.
Not every team will make it. They might just play some local stuff, but there's around 30 teams registered for the NBBA.
So I gotta ask on a personal note, like you were named World Series MVP. How did that have to feel? The idea of being able to lead your team and this being like the first East Coast team. I mean, that had to feel very special to you in particular.
Yeah, it was cool, man. I I consider myself a pretty good player. They've had some all-star games the past couple years, and I've actually been invited to go out there, but I never actually made the all-tournament team at the World Series before. It's the top 5 or 6 batters and top 5 or 6 defenders. I've always been really, really close. So this year, everything kind of just really went right. All credit to my pitcher. His name's Patrick Krause. He's just putting the ball on the bat. We ended up going 29 for 38. Batted 718 at the World Series. That was the highest average, and that's why I got the offensive MVP. But that was just like the cherry on top. If you would have told me we were going to win the World Series and I wasn't going to get the MVP, I would have been completely fine with that. So I just wanted to win. It worked out that I was able to get both, and that it was just really cool.
Yeah.
So if you can, every World Series champion deserves a parade, and you brought this up to me in our conversation. Can you talk a little bit about the Dummers parade?
Sure. So, we had our ring ceremony a few weeks back. We all got our championship rings.
Nice.
I always I always joked that, when we win it, we're going to have a parade down Broad Street. Now, we didn't reach out or try anything like that. So I'm not saying it wouldn't have been possible. But we're a lower level team, not a lot of notoriety or whatever. Not everybody knows who we are. We're growing, and social media is helping and stuff. But I was just randomly talking to a couple guys involved in the Dummers parade. John Fralinger, PJ Dolans, actually, obviously a great guy. I've talked to him a bunch, and some of the other guys involved in the Dummers parade, and they were just telling me what it's about. I've kind of been watching from afar the last couple years. And the slogan for the Dummers parade, I believe, is help us help others. So it's obviously a good cause. I believe there's a kid named Dean who's got a lot of medical stuff going on, and that's kind of the main theme of the Dummers parade this year is to help him out. So we were just kind of talking, and I threw it out there and said, it would be cool if we could come out and kind of, march in that and help, raise funds or awareness or whatever is needed. And, the guy, John, I was talking to, John Fralinger, thought it was a great idea, and just made some calls and said, you guys are in. So it's a short parade. I think it's only about, 15 minutes to a half an hour in the downtown Ridley Park area. But we play in Delco. We practice in Delco. I'm a Delco guy, so it's as close to Broad Street as it's going to get for me. And I'm good with it. I think it'll be a great experience for everyone. We're going to kind of just wear our rings and hold our trophy up and do whatever we can to kind of help out that day to make the parade a success and raise funds and stuff like that.
Yeah, Dolans and PJ are good friends of the show, and we know that that establishment in PJ really well, and he does a lot of great things for the community. Do you have any idea what day that parade is on, or have
it's going to be Saturday, January 4th. So the first Saturday after the Mummers parade, basically, is when they do it every year.
If you're not too hungover, Philadelphia, from the Mummers, go celebrate the Dummers parade and celebrate world champions, because God knows this city needs to celebrate world champions with some of the disappointments that have gone on recently.
You got a couple days to recover. I think the Mummers parade's on Wednesday, so you got till Saturday. Hit them both up.
Yes, absolutely. So before we move on, I just let everybody know where they can find any information if they're interested on signing up for the Philadelphia Fire, and what kind of things they would need to know in order to become a member of the Philadelphia Fire.
Yeah, so we welcome all, whether you want to volunteer or if you're blind and visually impaired, wanted to kind of check out the sport. We don't really have an official sign up thing like initially. Basically, what people do is either reach out to me or send us a message like you did to our Facebook page to get more information. We do practice and play our home games at Norwood Park. We do our batting practices at South Philly Sports Training in South Philly, pretty close to the stadiums. We start that. We're there in the winter, and then once we get outside in April at Norwood Park, we start practicing there. I just want to thank both of those venues really quickly for allowing us to practice and play at their venues. It's been awesome. Great relationship. But you just reach out and say, hey, I'm interested, and usually I'll say, okay, we have practice this day, and come out. We're part of a bigger organization called the Blind Sports Organization, who's basically our overarching nonprofit, and we play under them. And they have a goal ball program, which is another blind sport. They actually have blind tennis. They have a lot of different things. So you actually would become a member of the Blind Sports Organization and then a member of the Philly Fire. If you want to learn more about the Blind Sports Organization, you can visit blindsports.org. There's a lot of information on us and the other sports. If you're interested in donating to any of the causes, you can donate there. There's a donate button on there. And again, if you're just interested in the baseball, you can send a message to our Facebook page, Philadelphia Fire Beat Baseball. And more than likely, it'll be me or one of the other captains reaching out to you to kind of gauge your interest and see what you're looking to do.
Yeah, and to just throw a shout out, because I told my wife that I would. I'm gonna shout out another one of your captains, Dakota, who is going to be sharing out this show on all social media. And please, if anybody has any questions, please reach out to the Philly Fire Facebook page. And with any questions. So James, before we move on, two things. Number one, do we have any comments or questions for John on our comment board?
No, we don't. It's just basically Charles Adler. He's just checking in and just saying like, give us a like, and also stop. Thanks for all you just showing his support and saying powerful stuff indeed. Like he said, basically, Mitch Kofsky saying good morning to us. Like that was at the top of the show.
Right.
But nobody as of right now. But
do you have any questions for John?
No, I don't. I'm actually pretty intrigued about this what's like kind of like what the circumstances like with the Philly Fire and also being an MVP and also a World Series champion. I mean, that's pretty amazing, man.
Yeah, one more thing I'll say about beat baseball in general is it really does a lot for people that are blind and visually impaired, especially people newly blind and visually impaired. Sometimes you're going about your daily life. There's people that have driven to work and done this or that, and whether it's an accident or genetic something just pops up, you'd be surprised how many people become legally blind out of nowhere in like their 40s or 50s or 30s and just had no idea they had it. But there's a genetic kind of marker just waiting to show itself. But in general, it really does a lot for those people. It brings us together. I know it's changed my life in such a positive way. We share different tricks and tips on how to navigate, losing your vision and stuff like that. And then when you're out on the field and, you hit the ball and you run to the base or you get a put out on defense and you do all that, it just brings you a sense of confidence that, you know what I mean? I can do this. I can navigate this. If I can do this, I can do anything. So it really brings a strong sense of community for the blind and visually impaired as a whole. And like I said at Norwood Park when we got invited there to their community day, thanked everyone. This sport, it really does change lives for the better for blind and visually impaired athletes.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. Man, that's so awesome.
So speaking from a person that has been an athlete for the majority of my life, and I've kind of since hung things up, but we'll see. I lost my sight about 3 years ago, but I have a rare genetic eye disease that I was born with. So I always had a visual impairment, but I always managed, and that sense of community even when I played 4 sports in high school, that sense of community, that sense of teamwork, that sense of, camaraderie, that it brings together people in a way where it can uplift people from isolation. The blind and visually impaired community, whether or not you've been blind all your life or whether you lost sight later in life, sometimes isolation is a very key thing to combat against. And being able to be involved in sports and community is vital for people that are blind and visually impaired. But more so, it's also helpful because we want to be able to have that sense of belonging.
Yep.
And I can say this, if from my perspective, and I've already talked to John about it, and I'm going to try to kick off the rust. I've never been a baseball guy, but I'll try to kick off the rust and give it a whirl and see if I can come out of retirement and become a blind sport athlete once again. I mean, it's most people might find it fascinating that people that play sports that are blind or have any kind of disability, there's still that level of competitiveness. I mean, there's this juice that still goes flowing through you, that you're still super competitive. And so that's why I told John, like, I'm not going to just go and sign up just because, I'm blind. If I'm going to sign up, I'm going to sign up because I want to compete. And like that's the whole thing. I'm a competitor first and a blind person second. That's the way I've always viewed things. I'm not sure if you've had that same sense of that same feeling, John.
Oh yeah, I mean, we got a team full of competitors, obviously, and like the World Series and any other tournament we travel to, it's kind of like, there's two parts. You want to go compete and you want to really beat the guys, but you get a sense of camaraderie from all the different blind people from all over the country. Again, you learn things, and we battle hard, really hard on the field, try to beat each other all day. And then at the end of the day, you know what I mean? We're kind of hanging out and saying, man, that was a good game and stuff like that. So there's just, it's just a good sport overall. Most people that end up traveling to the World Series, whether it's a player or a volunteer, are like, this is pretty awesome. I think I'm going to come back to this every year. So
speaking of competing, if we can, let's move it to a competition in which there's been a lot of drama around the Philly region, and that is your Philadelphia Eagles. I wish I could say it's been as the world turns, but this seems like it's a sitcom or drama that's been on repeat. So the Philadelphia Eagles last weekend beat the Carolina Panthers by the skin of their teeth. But that wasn't the storyline. Uh, the fact that Saquon Barkley became the leading rusher in franchise history did not become the storyline. The storyline became AJ Brown's quote after the game about the part of the game for the Eagles that they have to work on is passing. And then the drama ensued between, are AJ and Jalen still friends? Are AJ and Jalen going to get along for the rest of the season? I really do feel like I'm watching like this Days of Our Lives drama unfold. James, tell me what you thought of the AJ Brown Jalen Hurts drama that unfolded this past week.
I mean, it's interesting because like obviously everybody's been talking about it for the last few days, but between me and you, Joe, and also also John here, I'm not I wasn't even like I wasn't even annoyed about it. I mean, it was just like the thing that drove me crazy about it was like everybody was trying to make it to be like T.O. and Donovan again, but it never was the case. It never was the case. I mean, it's just the whole like everybody been talking about it for the last week or so. But I do applaud Brandon Graham to a little bit to an extent about what he talked about because he didn't want the conversation between AJ and Jalen to linger into the week. So like that is a big I think I mean, yeah, sure, Brandon Graham was in over his head just a little bit, but I think like you had to have those like conversations because you don't want to be like one side of the fence is pro Jalen and the other side of the fence is pro AJ. So like they like the way it was constructed, I think it was very I guess it was organized, but at the same time, I mean, everybody talking about it like it was a big thing was kind of ludicrous to me.
And look, talking about drama, Team Jalen, Team AJ. What is this?
Yeah.
The Twilight Saga? Like I'm not trying to deal with that. And I
Pros
thought,
and cons and all that stuff, right?
yeah, and like I'm not. I think, and I'll get to this in a minute. I think the Brandon Graham remarks were intentional, but I
Mhm.
think they were intentional for a good-hearted reason. I think that for Brandon there was intention behind those words. But before I get to that, I want to get John's perspective. What was your perspective, John, hearing this drama unfold between AJ and Jalen this week?
Well, while I while I don't disagree with AJ that there is a little bit of a problem in the passing game, the bottom line is we're still winning games.
Right.
And I I don't think that I just don't like if he has an issue with that stuff. It's just not something you need to put in the media. Talk to Jalen after the game. Work on the stuff during the week. Uh, you shouldn't really be that frustrated when we're winning. I see the long term goal, and everybody seemed to kind of walk back their comments. And by Wednesday, everything seemed to be kind of hunky dory again. And hopefully, maybe that was something that needed to happen. Just just going back to our team, we had a few flare ups leading up to the series, and it all worked out. We kind of figured it all out, obviously, and made it work. But there's certain things you kind of put out there to the media, and there's certain things you probably shouldn't. I think it's a tad overblown, but it's the second year in a row. It's coming up now, which is a little worrisome. Keep the in-house frustrations in-house. That's the way I look at it. Just toe the line and say, I think there's still meat on the bone in the passing game, but we got the win.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, here's my thing: is I think the Brandon Graham thing, remarks, and the reason why he did that with the intention he did, is because of what happened last year. And look, regardless if Brandon Graham comes back next year or not, Brandon wants to see this team be successful
Mhm.
ultimately, and so he doesn't want to see this kind of get swept under the rug like it did last year
Right.
because they saw what happened. And I feel like Jordan Mailata kind of came out and made that, abundantly clear too this week by saying, look, we're done with this. We got
Right.
over it. We're past it. You guys want to continue to talk about it? That's on you. We're focused on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And it was to the point where they were some of the players were not infuriated with Brandon as much as they were like, okay, you guys are making a mountain out of a molehill, and we understand what last year was, but we're not going backwards. Does AJ have a reason to be upset? Yes. There
Absolutely.
and look, I'm a guy who is a big Jalen Hurts fan. I always have been, I always will be. Should he be passing more? Yes and no. Like, you don't go away from the thing that's working so well,
Right.
especially if it's winning you the games that it's winning you. However, can he take deep shots every once in a while? Sure. But I think sometimes when you have some coaches like Nick Sirianni that are knee-jerk coaches that may listen to media or may listen to outside influences and go, we got to worry about the turnovers. We got to worry. No, 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 no. You worry about the turnovers if it's affecting your team in a negative way. But
Right.
it hasn't been. Even when they were 2-2, you're 2-2 at a situation where you're, as I said in the beginning of the season, where you're just getting your legs underneath you. It's not a fair assessment to say, our turnovers are up this early in the year. This is a worrisome thing. I said to you, James, and many other people that have been on the show, that it didn't worry me because it was like working out the kinks. And you kind of, unlike another 7 foot, 200 whatever pound guy that keeps saying he's ramping up for like the last, I don't know, 10 years. The idea that normal athletes have to ramp themselves up to get, in rhythm for the year. I feel like Jalen heard too much of the priority from his coach of don't turn the ball over. And he had, in all fairness to Jalen, he hasn't. He hasn't turned the ball over, but now he's being criticized that he's not throwing it deep enough. It's like pick your side. Like I know that he should take at least a couple deep throws. I go back to the Donovan. You brought it up earlier, James, about Donovan and T.O.
Mm-hmm.
I go back to Donovan and Deshaun.
Right.
When Deshaun was here, Donovan would at least throw 3 deep balls to Deshaun, and we still had a more than decent good running tack with Westbrook or Deuce or whoever we had at the time. So my feeling is, okay, treat AJ like Donovan treated Deshaun. Give him at least 2 or 3 deep looks, and if anything, you're overthrowing him. That's fine. Overthrow him. Like tell AJ, I'm going to throw it. You're not going to even look. I'm just going to throw it 20 yards, 20 or 30 yards on a post route. If you get to the ball, great. You don't, not my problem. Not my fault. I put it there.
Wow.
I mean, do you
it's,
agree? I mean, like,
no, I'm right there with you, Joe. I mean, like the thing about it too is like it's like laughable. It's not even like I think it's more laughable than anything else because it's like, I mean, first of all, it's not. Let's not go crazier. It's not Donovan AJ. I mean, you could say Donovan Deshaun, but I didn't know there was a turmoil with the Donovan and Deshaun. I mean, this is this is probably like early 2010, so I was not watching them very closely because of the Michael Vick situation. But I mean,
well, there wasn't turmoil between Donovan and Deshaun.
That's what I was going to say too. It wasn't like it's a big thing,
But if Donovan was always checking it down to Freddie Mitchell or someone else, there might have been that.
Sure.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, so if it was like Jalen throwing it to Devontae or Saquon, then it would have been a problem.
Right. If I just think that this team is trying to play at its most optimal level. Mm-hmm. So speaking of that, I gotta ask, John, what was your takeaways from the Carolina Panthers game?
It's the NFL, so as much as I would have liked them to kind of wipe them off the board there and really put it to the Panthers have been playing a lot better lately. So I'm not too worried about squeezing one out against them. Good teams find a way to win. We did that. A lot closer at the end than it should have been. A drop pass away from potentially a loss. But again, I mean, they went toe-to-toe with the Chiefs. They went to overtime with the Bucks, who aren't a great team but not a bad team. They've just been playing better ball. Bryce Young looks like the benching sort of worked for him, and he's actually maybe going to be okay now moving forward. So again, would I have liked them to kind of crush them? Sure. I wouldn't say I'm concerned though. I'm happy to get the win.
So let's move forward to the Keystone Clash between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, we brought it up earlier about 1 or 2 weeks ago, James, is that Pittsburgh always, whether we're going there or they're coming here, it's always a dogfight. Like
It
that,
is.
it's always like get down, bare your knuckles and get ready for a fight because it's not going to be for the faint of heart. And this Keystone Clash seems to be like it's going to be just as much of a dogfight because both teams are fighting for something. And so they're trying to garner position in their respective playoff pictures. So my question to you, James, give me your breakdown of what you think is going to happen against the Pittsburgh Steelers coming up on Sunday, and give me your score prediction.
Yeah, I mean, for the Eagles this week, I think it's basically the same thing as it always has all season long. It's just keeping the main thing the main thing. I think that's the one thing I took out of it. So, I mean,
I swear I was waiting for Jalen to say that 8 times
yeah,
this
I was
week.
waiting for it too. Gonna admit, Joe.
He kept saying the main thing, and I'm like, okay, just say I'm trying to keep the main thing the main thing, and I'm like,
Exactly.
okay,
Yeah, I
just
mean,
say it.
yeah, and the other thing too is that for me, I think that the one thing I was really in. I mean, the last time I checked when we played Pittsburgh, the last couple times here in South Philadelphia, it wasn't like it wasn't like they. I mean, we thought about it. It was like there was a time it was Ben Roethlisberger, and there was another time it was like Kenny Pickett. And I'm like thinking, okay, Roethlisberger, I can understand we can worry some. I mean, between me and you, Joe, I'm not worried about Russell Wilson. I mean, he had his couple Super Bowls. I mean, he had his couple of chances against teams that are in the division. I mean, it's good to know he's getting back to that, like resurrecting his career, but like this week, it's going to be like I don't even see like Russell Wilson. I mean, Russell Wilson has to come down to earth eventually. I mean, since the last 5 weeks before that, he struggled against the New York Jets. And
Well, the positive in that and coming down to earth is that he's going to be without his number one target tomorrow, in George
correct,
Pickens.
correct.
And the other part of to keep in mind, just as a little food for thought, is that the Pittsburgh Steelers haven't won in Philadelphia in over 40 years.
Yeah, you're probably going back to the vet days,
Yeah, and so
early vet days, or the
early
early
vet
vet
days.
days, like the Mike McCormick days. No, if we don't
Yeah,
want to go that
I
far.
I'd almost go like Franklin Field, almost like
Yeah,
back to that far. But here's my perspective: is that with Russell Wilson coming down to earth, I wonder, like, does that make the Eagles defense more susceptible to the run? Do you have the confidence? And I'll ask John, do you have the confidence in this linebacking core slash defensive line to hold up against this? I wouldn't call it a vaunted Pittsburgh rushing attack, but they always have good running backs in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I think they'll be okay. I think they're gonna be able to stack the box a little bit more, just because of what you mentioned with no George Pickens. They don't really have a lot else in the passing game that makes you nervous. I mean, they got Calvin Austin and Freiermuth. I guess they have Mike Williams. He hasn't done too much, so I think they're going to stack the box a bit, and I think they will hold up, and they'll allow the corners to play one-on-one coverage on those guys I just mentioned, and I think that's a plus matchup for us.
So, James, let me get your predictions on what you think is going to happen tomorrow as far as like score and whatnot.
well, I think this is going to be This is going to be an AJ Brown like all what happened this week. I think he's going to have himself a good game tomorrow. To me, I think it's going to be going to be a passing kind of game. I think it's going to be like not like the last previous meeting that the Eagles took on Pittsburgh. That was like 3 touchdowns for AJ. So I see AJ get 2 maybe touchdowns tomorrow. Saquon get himself a touchdown, maybe a tush push here and there in Devontae. So I got the Eagles winning tomorrow. I do. And I think it's going to be not as severely I thought it was going to be last week with the Panthers because like John mentioned, like they're another team that's coming around and they're finally getting their footing back. So I got the Eagles winning 34-21 tomorrow.
Nice. All right, John, give me your breakdown prediction of what you think is going to happen tomorrow against the Steelers in South Philly.
Well, I hope we don't have a repeat of 2004, which is when the Eagles were playing the Steelers. I do think it was in Pittsburgh, though, was
Right.
kind of the first time T.O. started to go off on the sideline, if I remember correctly. It was against the Steelers. But I don't think that will happen. I do agree. I hope A.J. does have a good game, and I think he will. The Steelers are number 4 against the run, and I think they're around 17th or 18th, I read, against the pass. So this may be a game where we got to get the passing game going. They may stifle Saquon a little bit more than other teams, even though I still think with this offensive line and his ability, they're going to be fine. They're going to get some, but it may not be, a 200-yard game or something like that. It may just be your average 100-yard game. I do think the Eagles win for sure. It seems like they always start slow and don't tend to really crush teams. So I'm gonna go close game, 24-20 Birds, but maybe in control comfortably most of the game, and the Steelers kind of punch in a last second touchdown to make it look a little closer than it really was.
So for me, this game has been it's been weighing on me for a while, especially since the Ravens game. Because the Ravens game is one that in the beginning of the season I had as a loss. I had the Eagles having only 12 wins, and they're clearly, in my mind, going to have more than that this season, which is fine. But this worries me because it's always a dogfight. And the idea that, when you put a good defense up against this team, especially like a guy like TJ Watt and Cam Hayward and all those guys and Patrick Queen, and it's going to make a difference. I think the Eagles are not going to get out to the fast start that everyone's hoping. I hope I'm wrong, but I just feel like that the Steelers could get home a little quicker. I did not like, as much as everyone wanted to blame AJ and Jalen and that misconnection, or Jalen holding the ball too long for the sacks last week against the Panthers. My feeling was that those sacks should have never happened. I mean, that Panthers defensive line is not that good. And so if we struggled, that offensive line struggled against the Panthers defensive line, then my fear is that the Pittsburgh Steelers defensive line is a lot stronger, and their rushing attack is blitzing attack is much stronger than the Panthers is. So I worry about this game, but I am still going to give the edge to the Eagles. But I'm going to kind of go with our guy Jaws. I'm going to go 21-20 Eagles. I'm going to go with a slim margin, and I think it's going to be a sweat. I think it's going to AJ's going to get his numbers, and the storm's going to calm down. I think Saquon, if anything, is going to help this game because he's going to run out the fourth quarter like he's done in the last previous 3 games. And I think that's going to be a benefit to us. He's going to wear down. My hope is you wear down this defense. But the question becomes, before they get worn down, what damage are they going to inflict? And so that's where my biggest concern comes in, is if the Eagles can get up on the Steelers by 10 early in the first half, I think it's going to be all Eagles all day. But if they struggle to get out of the box like they have the last, 7-8 weeks, or all season pretty much, this might become a puncher's chance for the Eagles to pull off this victory. So I'm hoping for the best. Before we wrap up, I wanted to first say thank you to Johnny Mob for coming on, talking about the Philadelphia Fire, giving some awareness to people out there and information about beep baseball and the National Beep Baseball Association, about their World Series, about the Dummers parade at PJ Dolans. please tell everybody who's watching and listening where they can find you personally.
Yeah, I'm on Facebook. On Facebook, my name is Johnny Ma. But again, if you send a message to the Philadelphia Fire Beat baseball page, I'm one of the admins, and so is a couple of the other captains. So if you want more information on the Philly Fire Beat baseball team, definitely just go that route and send a message, and we'll get you any information you need, whether you're interested in donating, volunteering, playing, or you just want to come watch. We are scheduled to host a leg of the Beast of the East tournament, which is a 2-leg tournament. Usually we do it. It's just the East Coast teams. That's going to be June 28th at Norwood Park in Norwood, Lower Norwood Park. So if you actually want to come out and see the sport live, we'll be playing around 3 games that day, finishing up the second part of the tournament. We've actually won the Beast of the East tournament for the last 4 years in a row. Previously, a team from Boston called the Boston Renegades had won it 9 years straight before that. We beat them in the championship the last four years, which is pretty cool. So
I before we go, I wanted to ask this. I didn't get a chance to ask this earlier. So we talked about the Mets and how the Phillies and the Mets and that rivalry and the Keystone Clash with the Steelers and the Eagles. For the Philadelphia Fire, do you guys have a rival?
Absolutely. The Boston Renegades is probably our biggest rival. And then there's a team in New Jersey called the New Jersey Titans, who
okay.
We they used to beat us a good amount years back, and then we've kind of been taking care of them the last few years, but they keep getting better and better. They finished 6th at the World Series, out of 20 teams, and the Boston team finished 9th, which is actually a little far back for them. They had a rough last couple of games, but they're always pretty neck and neck. Like, we beat them 16-15 in a game. We beat New Jersey 12-11. So we're not, when you play division game or rival games, people know each other. They're moving, shifting certain ways. He's going to hit it here. You get used to each other. So they're definitely our big rivals. There's another team in Long Island called the Long Island Bombers, and there's another team in Boston called the Boston Strong. They're all part of the Beast of the East tournament. The Bombers and the Strong are kind of coming along a little slower and towards the back of the pack, but the Titans and the Renegades are definitely our biggest rivals right now, at least.
So
Very
Boston has 2 teams. That's interesting.
Yeah, they only had one for a while, but the Renegades were a large team. They had like around 20-something players or so.
Wow.
And when you get that many players, it becomes a challenge to get people playing time. You only have 6 people on the field at once. So, a few of the guys that used to play for that team decided they want to start another team. There's 2 teams in Indianapolis as well. There's not a lot of cities that have that. But I mean, I guess like the Yankees and the Mets and the Dodgers and the Angels, there's a few in the larger cities that have 2. If you have enough volunteers and players, people want to play. They don't necessarily want to, just come out and sit on the bench or spending money to travel to these things. So sometimes you'll see a second team kind of sprout up just because they have enough blind athletes in the area to do it.
Wow, that's amazing.
That's incredible.
I want to also, because like when he was talking about the Renegades, I could kind of tell a little tone in the voice, like, yeah, the Boston Renegades. Like, it's the way that I say Dallas Cowboys and
yeah,
like it's. I could tell there was a little tone, and that's why I asked. I'm like, that seemed like it was a little fire underneath that, no pun intended.
Yeah,
but
they're definitely our biggest rival for sure, and then they beat us for a long time. So the fact that we got beaten by them for so many years, and now having able to beat them is rewarding for sure.
Definitely.
Well, it's like the Cowboys of the NFL. They've had our number for a number of years, and now they're trying to figure out how to pick up the pieces in Jerry World.
Yeah, definitely.
I want to say a big thank you to you for coming on to our show, telling us all about Beat Baseball. I hope to do more promotions and more business with you and have you back on. I really do appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Joe. We really do appreciate it.
Absolutely, no problem. Thanks for having me on and talking about the team. The more awareness and exposure we can get out there for the sport, the better. So I appreciate it as well.
No problem. And
Anytime.
I want to say a big thank you to James Scorza for being the producer extraordinaire. James has been super busy trying to get his own personal studio set up, and so he's been wheeling and dealing, so to speak. So thank you,
Slowly
man.
but surely, Joe, but we're getting there.
Yeah, but thank you once again for being amazing producer.
You got
Uh,
it, brother.
I want to thank everybody who tuned in and touch base. Please, if you're interested, please, like John said, reach out to them. If you're watching us and you enjoy what you're hearing, go hit that like or subscribe button for Hardcore Sports Network or Stream Punk Entertainment. I'll be on later on tonight after the Flyers game, after the Flyers Minnesota game, to give a little bit of a recap on the Flyers, and hopefully the Flyers can make it 3 in a row. Man, Scotty Lawton.
4 goals, man.
Woo! I can live with it. I'll deal with it. Let the man go off. Let the man cook. But you could join me later on Stream Punk Entertainment later on for Third Line John Flyers post game show after the Flyers Minnesota game. But for John Ma and James Scorza, I'm Joe Marks. We're the Pattison Ave Sports Show, and good afternoon, good evening, and have a good weekend, Philadelphia.
See you later.